Hey everyone, welcome back to This Is Her. I am your host, Shani Marie, and today I want this episode to feel a little different. Today I want to take you on a trip down memory lane. I want this episode to feel nostalgic, and I want to bring you back to when times were just a little bit more simpler, right? Back when you used to get your scraped knees, or riding bikes, or streetlights. The streetlights when you had to come home when the streetlights came on. And summer vacations that felt like they lasted forever. Back to being a kid. You know those lyrics? Back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore, but someday I sit and wish I was a kid again. Now, that right there, every time I hear those words and it lives rent-free in my head, I smile because they remind me of my childhood that I'll never get back, right? And one thing I'll never forget, and maybe it's because I'm getting older, or maybe it's because I'm raising my kids on my own now, but lately I've found myself asking, do you ever miss the old days? Not because life was perfect, not because everything was easier, but because life just felt different, right? Life felt different, and we didn't know we were living in the good old days because we were too busy just enjoying life every day. So today, let's go back. Let's go back. Back to when we didn't need a phone. Do you remember when you wanted to go find your friends? Because I do. This is very clear in my head. And you didn't have to text them. You didn't have to Snapchat. You didn't have to share your location. You just put on your shoes, walked down the street, knocked on that door, right? Right at their front door. And their mom, their dad, their grandma, somebody would answer and say, oh, they're not here. They're down the street at so-and-so's house, right? So you'd walk all the way down the street to their house, knock again, doom, doom, doom. You know, nope, they just left. I think they're down the street at the next so-and-so's house, or they're at the park, or they're somewhere at the store. Before you know it, you found everybody, and everybody was a whole in that neighborhood. Everybody was a whole link up. And the funniest part was every parent knew where every kid was. It wasn't just your mom watching you. It was everybody. Everybody's mom, everybody's dad, everybody's cousin, auntie. And if you got hurt, someone's mom came running. Wasn't just yours. If you were thirsty, someone handed you a juice box or some water. If dinner was ready, you'd hear your name being yelled down the hallway or down halfway down the street. I would hear, Shani! And somehow you'd hear it, someone else would hear it. And looking back, we didn't just grow up with friends. We grew up with community, and they became like your family, right? We knew how to sit down and entertain ourselves. Even on rainy days, they were fun. Snow days, they were fun. We'd sit on someone else's porch, play board games, do arts and crafts. I don't know, play hand games, build forts in the snow. Our parents would send us outside, go play in the snow, make bracelets. I don't know, I did so much color, laugh until my stomach hurt. Like, nobody needed Wi-Fi. Nobody needed screens. We just had each other. I used to climb trees, do all types of crazy things. And somehow that was just enough. Outside was our playground. And if the weather was nice, you couldn't keep us inside. We're like, yo, we're going outside. We rode our bikes everywhere. We played tag, hide and seek, manhunt, Nicky Nine Door, basketball, soccer, jump rope. We walked through the trails, went to the creek. I even did that. Tied swings across the water, just so you can rope across. And it's like a friggin' movie adventure that you would have, right? And looking back, I laugh because our parents probably would have had heart attacks knowing what we were doing half the time, right? My parents didn't know I was at the creek. My parents didn't know I was going on adventures. Mom didn't know nothing. Those adventures, those muddy shoes, those grass stains, scrapes on the knees. Honestly, a couple broken bones too. And those are the memories that I still sit down and laugh about today. And I can reminisce. I'm not saying I'm always wanting to live back there, but I'm reminiscing. And we had less, but somehow we had more. The funny thing is that we actually had less technology, less convenience, less distractions, but somehow it felt like we had more fun, more laughter, more conversations, right? We had so much conversation, so much imagination. We had more time together. We had more community. Back then, we weren't trying to just go viral, right? We barely even had YouTube and all of that stuff. We were just trying to find our friends. And the moment that brought me back a little while ago was I took my daughter across the street into another neighborhood from where I live. And my neighborhood is pretty boring, right? And as we were walking, I stopped. And there was kids everywhere, riding bikes, playing together, in the park together, running around, laughing. Parents were watching from their windows or their balconies or their porches. And the older kids were making sure that the younger kids stayed together. And I just stood there and I smiled. Because for a second, I felt like I had stepped back in my own childhood. And it reminded me actually that this kind of childhood still could exist. It still exists. It's just not everywhere. And just because it's harder to find doesn't mean that it's not there. And in that moment, I realized something. I don't miss being a kid. I miss how connected we all were. I don't know if you guys remember the blackout. Because I started thinking about 2003 blackout. And most people remember it as just losing power I don't even remember. It felt like a week to me because I was a kid. And I remember gaining people. Neighbors came outside. People pulled out their barbecues because the food was going spoiled in their house. And families shared meals. And kids played outside until actually late. We were outside pretty late. And, people sat on their porches talking for hours. Nobody was scrolling. Nobody was worried about taking pictures. Nobody cared about posting. People were just together. They were just living. And sometimes I wonder, why does it take something like losing power to remind us how much we need one another? Let that sink in. And so now, don't get me wrong. Technology is a blessing, right? Without it, this podcast wouldn't exist. And without it, you and I would not be connected right now at all. So this isn't about saying the old days were better. Every generation has its own challenges, right? But I do think that there's something from those days that were still worth holding on to. Community, presence, conversation, and knowing our neighbors. We barely even know our neighbors now. Checking on each other, playing outside, making memories without having to worry about anyone else seeing it or if they saw them, right? And that's why I try so hard to make my own kids have to experience the things that I went through. I want them to know what it feels like to play outside until they're exhausted or the streetlights come on, to explore nature, to build friendships, to laugh until their stomach hurts, right? To come home with dirty shoes just because they spent the whole day making memories. Not because I'm trying to recreate my childhood, but because I want them to have one they can look back on and still smile about, like how I did and like how you did, right? The same way I smile, I want them to think about mine the same way and say, oh, that was like what mom went through. I went through that too. And maybe we can't go back. Maybe we're not supposed to, but we can take the best parts of those days and bring them into the lives we're living today. Knock on your neighbor's door. Invite someone over for dinner. Call someone instead of sending them a text. Take your kids to the park. Go for walks. Watch the sunset without reaching for your phone. Sit on the porch for a second. Have real conversations. Because one day, the moments that you're living right now will become someone else's back in the day. So make them count. Make them count. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on another episode of This Is Her. Oh, and before I let you go, I want to ask you one question. What's one thing from your childhood that you wish today's generation could experience? Leave it in the comments. I truly can't wait to read your memories, or send them in a DM if you're shy. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and don't forget, go and live a little, because one day, the moments you're living right now will become someone else's back in the day. So make them count. Take a walk. Take that walk. Call your parents. Visit your grandparents. That's important. And put your phone down for just a little while. And sit on that porch, as I said. And take your kids outside. Laugh a little louder. Love a little deeper. And be present. Be present. Because years from now, you're either going to remember the moments, or you're going to wish that you made more of them. So thank you so much for listening to another episode. Thank you so much. And if this episode brought back memories, or made you smile, or reminded you of someone that you loved, I'd appreciate it if you shared this video with someone who you grew up with in the 90s or the early 2000s. And let's take a little trip down memory lane together. And before I go, I want you to pause for just a second. Close your eyes, and if you can, close your eyes, and think back of your childhood. What's the very first memory that comes to your mind? Maybe it's riding your bike. Maybe it's hearing your mom call your name for dinner. Or maybe it's the summer days with your friends, your cousins, your loved ones. Or maybe if it's even rainy afternoons, that you play inside for a second. Whatever it is, hold on to it, because those are ordinary memories and they become extraordinary memories. Now, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching this episode. And thank you for just embracing yourselves and remembering and having just amazing memories. Thank you again for watching This Is Her. I'm your host, Shani Marie, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace.